Gurcharan Das, in the light of the economic crisis, this is particularly relevant. At that time, 20 years ago, it was a triumph of capitalism, it was the end of history. But now, after the economic crisis, there is a feeling that there is the dark underside of capitalism, that capitalism is not everything it's cracked up to be. So do you think that, in fact, the euphoria that was there in 1989 has significantly faded now about capitalism's ability to deliver profit and deliver welfare?
No, I don't think that's true, Sagarika. I think what you had at that time was, when the Berlin Wall fell, was not just the triumph of capitalism, it was a triumph of sanity, triumph of what human beings consider natural. Ever for 10,000 years, ever since the beginning of surplus, human beings have exchanged goods. And that's at the marketplace. And that is what is natural to human beings. It was communism that was unnatural intrusion. And in over 70 years, it killed 50 million of its own citizens. And now, I can just say that this crisis does not show a crisis of capitalism. It does show that human beings are flawed. You will have bubbles. And you'll need regulation, enlightened regulation that will not kill the animal spirits. But basically, this is the only way. What Marx's way proved was that human egos will not shrink that far. Mm-hmm. And therefore, let's not try to re-engineer human beings. Let's live like human beings.
So you're saying that for whatever its faults...
it was a lunacy.
Right, whatever its faults, it's still the capitalist form of economy that will still lift millions out of poverty. Nik Gowing, when you were there, did you get the feeling that the people were going to the West for political freedom? Were they going because they were protesting against the politics of communism, or were they simply going because they wanted money, they wanted the good life, they wanted the Western way of life? That was what they were enamored about.
They just simply wanted liberation from the way they'd been living. But remember, that was 20 years ago, and the generation of that time, the adults of that time, are still living, many of them, in East Germany. Mm-hmm. Many of them still have a mindset which is concerned by the liberation because they were brought up in a Soviet system, essentially. And as you will see from the voting in recent German elections, Die Linke, the left party, is still well supported there. Much of Eastern Germany has not done well apart from the vast amounts of money spent by first Bonn, then Berlin, in that area. There are those of that generation, not the new generation, the next generation, who were born since the wall came down. In other words, up to, say, the 30-year-olds. But there are many who feel a sense of fear about the openness. I have to say, I would challenge you on this business of capitalism. This was about political pluralism, and it's not just about East Germany. I spent a long time in Poland. I was there during martial law in 1981, the Lech Wałęsa Solidarity. I was also in Czechoslovakia, or the Czech Republic as it is now. This is about an opening up of the system, an ability to express yourself. And now all these countries are members of the European Union. And what has been interesting is they've been able to express themselves politically, but in the European Union elections, for example, the turnouts have been extraordinarily low. But it doesn't matter if it's capitalism or whatever it is, it's the fact that there's choice now, and people have been able to choose. And when I was working in Eastern Europe during those dark days of the 1980s, I always said that some of the best capitalists were those in the flea markets and the free markets who were working away from the state shops and the state system. They understood capitalism, but what they really wanted was the freedom to choose and to move out.
And that's a freedom, actually that's precisely a freedom that hasn't arisen from capitalism, has it? Because we still have, although capitalism is supposed to be triumphant and communism is dead, and unfreedoms are dead, but we still have regimes in the Middle East, we still have China, we still have North Korea. So it's not as if political freedom is a necessary corollary of capitalism.
Well, that's my point. It's about political pluralism, authoritarianism. So the analysis has to be more about the ability of people to make their choice, to move without visas within the European Union. The 27 nations, they can move from east to west, from west to east. There's no wall. They can choose where they want to live. And many East Germans still live in East Germany and have a very nice life. Some are struggling. Many in Poland have a very nice life. But in Bulgaria, for example, and this is at the root of the problems with the European Union, it's still an extraordinarily corrupt nation. But corruption existed under communism too.
Right, that's very interesting. In fact, we'll come back and talk about that. That, with the triumphant rise of capitalism and now its subsequent discrediting to some extent, what does this mean for political democracy and what does it mean for the regimes that actually have resulted after 1989? Let's take a short break and come back.